You realize that the 63 degrees that we have right now outside of our studios in a few days will feel warm? It just seems we can't shake some of that more cooler weather. I do want to point out, though, if you have issues with your air conditioning unit, which you may have fired up the last few days, and which you will need much more of as the weeks progress, please give the folks at Ramsey Heating and Electric a call. They'll come out and they'll get the job done right away. They'll get it done right the first time. Call the professionals at Ramsey Heating and Electric. They're in Burley, of course. Make sure the job is done right that first time. Get a free estimate today from one of the highly trained technicians and set yourself up for a great summer. You can come see Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley or telephone 208-678-0459. That's Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they sell warm winters and cool summers. Speaking of summer, now, when I was a younger guy and I used to take my daughter to the beach or to amusement parks and the like, we'd get out of the car in the parking lot, and the first thing I would do is say, okay, we've got to put sunblock on. Actually, it was more for me because she has some Italian ancestry, and she did never seem to burn like I did. I'd look like a lobster in a few hours, but she would look just fine. But I still insisted she put the sunblock on, even though she thought it was a little bit, I was a little overwrought about it. But we're talking about various cosmetic issues today on Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine with Dr. Jonathan Tripp,
Good,
including the fact that sunblock, not all are equal.
good morning.
Good morning.
You sound like a really progressive patient back then.
Yes.
Or not patient parent, sorry.
Yes.
Because that's one of the biggest things I have is people say, well, I don't really burn much, or I burn the first time in the summer and then I just tan, so I don't need sunblock. And that's not true.
Yeah.
And bottom line is if you're fair skinned like I am, you burn easy, so you get used to the idea of you got to wear sunblock because you don't like being burned. But the long term is the hard part to understand, especially, when you're 18 and gorgeous and you're, using oil to get that darker tan but if you could look at grandparents and say who has avoided the sun or who has been diligent
Right.
about sunblock and who was the sun worshiper, there's a drastic difference in how that skin looks, how the face looks, and then there's the cancer issues. So we're going to talk a little bit about sunblock in just a minute, but I want to brag about the new knowledge I've got. And I thought I knew, almost everything. For those of you out there that don't know me, that is a joke.
No.
Yeah,
Doctors do generally know a lot, I've
yeah.
discovered, though.
Yeah, no, a lot about some things. The problem is they think they know a lot about everything, and then they get themselves in trouble. So, yeah, hopefully there's a little humility that goes with this. Um, my wife and I, who is my office manager and a longtime expert in cosmetic peels and the different treatments that we've done. In fact, let me give a little background. My life was purely as a cosmetic physician for about 5 years down in the Phoenix area in a town called Mesa, right next to Scottsdale. Scottsdale is like the mecca for cosmetic treatments, whether it's plastic surgery or topical things. The types of things that I was into there uh, are what I call superficial cosmetics, and that is with lasers, with chemical peels, spider vein by injection, um, all kinds of stuff, getting rid of age spots. You kind of pick a topic. So laser hair removal was a big deal. Skin rejuvenation on the face, a big deal. And so I brought the things with me here that really were tried and true and that worked really well. I don't have a laser, so I don't want to brag about that. But the things that really make a difference for cleanup of the skin, I brought with me. And so I've been doing this for about 15 years, but was invited about a month ago to come to New York City and do kind of a specific and advanced training with the largest cosmeceutical manufacturer in the world, a company called Pierre Fabre. And they are the company that two of our two main cosmetic uh, products or our lines come from. And so they knew our history. And about a year ago, we just kind of reintroduced publicly that we're doing cosmetics because I wanted to make sure that the local population knew us as family medicine only first. And we've been doing cosmetics all along, but kind of on the quiet side of things. But now, shall we say, it's out in the open. We're in a small way advertising, but it's growing quite rapidly, and we're having lots of fun and success with it. So that gives you my background. But we got to do this training, and I learned great things about how I could do things with simple mild to moderate chemical peels. We have a technique called microneedling that we can even do treatment for deep acne scars, very specific, what they call ice pick acne scars, which up until, you know, I won't say we can get rid of them entirely, but the smoothing effect is second only to a CO2 laser, which essentially uh, obliterates the topical skin on your face, and you have about a 3 month recovery. So our job is to do similar type of treatment with virtually no recovery, and so that's the fun of what we're doing. So I want to talk about that more specifically, but let's go back to sunblock.
We'll get there in just a moment. We're coming up on the first break. It is 63, and we're coming up on 8:40. Well, it's 8:39, but I'll round up a little bit. Short break ahead. Dr. Jonathan Tripp in studio with us from Tripp Family Medicine here in Twin Falls. I need to point out his office is still looking for new patients, and as a patient of Dr. Tripp, generally being the operative word, if you call in the morning with a medical issue, they can see you that day, but within 24 hours, they can try to get you in the next day as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Hurt or sick, get seen quick.
We'll have more coming up in just a moment on KLIX. Dr. Jonathan Tripp dancing with us in the studio this morning. Loves the big bands.
Yep.
Well, I got to admit, I do too. That's why you hear a little Glenn Miller now and then. It's 64 on Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Bill Colley with you as well. The doctor was here until 9 o'clock this morning. We were talking about sunblocks. You know, you can go to the store sometimes and you can buy a discount sunblock, but it may not necessarily. First of all, there was suntan lotion and then there was sunblock, and there's a lot of differences going on here.
Yeah, there still is suntan lotion, and suntan lotion we think of as a sunblock, but really it's only SPF or providing blockage from UV rays is the fact that it's a lotion. It doesn't have any ingredients in it to really try to block sun. In fact, often, you can go and get tanning oils still, and they intensify the damage of the sun for the sake of, looking darker faster for those of you that can actually get a darker tan. So you actually increase the damage with that. And, in the old days, we talk about baby oil or iodine even that people would put on and then go lay out in the sun to really intensify their tan. So there is tanning lotion, there is suntan lotion, which is usually like an SPF of about 4. And then you start to get into sunblocks that range from anywhere from about 8 SPF to there's one that my wife made me use when we went out of the country. It was 100 SPF, which reminds me of the old days where everything makes you look white and you feel like you're in a rubber suit. So sunblock to me is a bad memory, necessary evil. And what I'm here to tell you is there are better. Not all are the same, and their ingredients are not the same. And so, you can pay $6 or $5 for, a particular store brand, and you're getting most of the benefits. So I don't want to say they're worthless. But if you don't like that rubbery feel, you don't like the smell, there are far better sunblocks, sunscreens. And what was interesting to me is as I looked at our cosmetic line, most of our sunblocks run between about $25 and $35 for, an average size tube that's mainly meant for your face, but then we have the bigger ones that are meant for the whole body. And they're usually an SPF of 50 or 40, and they don't smell like, they don't feel like, they don't look like sunblocks. And so I thought, well, that's kind of expensive, compared to my $6 version. But when I looked at any other cosmetic line that had a sunblock anywhere near the quality of what we have, they're usually $40 or $50 per bottle. So we're already, even though we're representing the largest cosmeceutical manufacturer in the world, they've come in at a price point that's actually below most of the competition. And so this is a pharmacy medical grade. You don't have to use as much. We have a great example of our front desk who's redhead, freckled, very fair skin, whose husband is a track coach, so some of you will be able to identify who I'm talking about already. She went to a track meet about 2 weeks ago and put the 50 SPF mineral sunblock that we have and put that on once in the morning and came back, and where she put it on was not burned, which is really unusual to get away with a whole day like that out in the sun. But where she missed up near her hairline, there were both sides of her forehead were frankly burned, and so she became the testimonial for a little even works, especially when you're using a medical grade sunblock. So there's my sales pitch for there are better feeling, and you use a lot less, so that higher expense really gets mitigated, or spread out over the use, because you're not using nearly as much.
I also discovered too in my own personal story that I better make sure I dab some on my ears, as well as make sure the tip of my nose and my brows and my chin especially. But even then, if you've got an open collar around the shoulders, and because your shirt shifts on you too while you're outside,
Yeah, yeah.
so you've got to get it really all over your shoulders because you're going to get some sun exposure there.
You've essentially just identified the favorite places, or the most common places that I treat precancers. We do freezing or liquid nitrogen called cryotherapy, and the tops of the ears, the nose, the brow area, um, and then of course where the neck shifts. But in women in particular that often have kind of an open collar, the upper part of the chest, or what's called the décolleté, is often forgotten and just beat to death by the sun. And so, sure enough, that's one of the hot areas, or shall we say, frequent areas that I'm asked, can you fix this? Can you make it look better? Because if you look under your chin in the mirror, going down under your chin and the neck, that's the most preserved skin on your face, because it's always shadowed by your chin. So if you go just to the sides on your neck, you'll see how that's different. So the block does matter.
We've got to point out too as well that that being out in the sun, at least you should get some of it, because trying to avoid it all the time is not good for you either.
Yeah, I know people who have better looking skin when they're 92 if they've avoided the sun their whole life. My recommendation is go outside. It's good for you. It's good for your body, for your mind, for your spirit. You have mental health that gets improved with outdoor activity. So just being outdoors is actually a benefit. So I'm not trying to say stay away. I'm just saying take precautions, be wise. Use your common sense, and use sunblock and hats, and if you can, long sleeve shirts. You get vitamin D from the sun. I'm a vitamin D pusher, so I like that. So when you can have your physical health improved with activity and being outside, I'm going to promote that. I'm going to try to help you keep protected, but I'm going to promote that.
Then we've got that group that is working on highways or out in the fields all summer long, though, and they really don't have a lot of opportunities to get away from the sun.
Right. They need the protection with them, kind of in their pocket, and based on how their clothes that they're wearing. So that really is true to form to say that we can't always be out of the sun, depending on our work, but you can improve or reduce the amount of damage that goes on by just having good stuff to protect you.
We're 10 minutes away from 9 o'clock, and I believe we have a telephone caller looking to reach Dr. Jonathan Tripp on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It is Better Health, and we're at 65 right now. Bill Colley answering the telephones. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Dr. Tripp, I was wondering, can people get melanoma in other parts of their body, and is it caused by the sun, or does melanoma happen in other organs from other reasons, or for other? I just was curious about that.
It's a great
Thank
question. Yeah. The melanoma is traditionally due to sun exposure. However, your question is, well thought out, because melanoma shows up in non-sun exposed areas, and so we can't say it's always because of the sun. It is usually of the skin. So a melanocyte is a cell that can produce melanin, and so a melanoma is a tumor that produces too much pigment, so to speak. And so often, not always, but often, a melanoma is a very dark spot on the skin. Sometimes they're very small, like a freckle. So if you have a lot of freckles, like I do on my arms, they're all kind of a medium brown. And if I all of a sudden had one show up that was much darker brown, or almost black, that's a big hint to say, this is not like the others, and we need to get it checked out. So yes, melanoma can show up anywhere, so to speak. The thing that taught me in my, actually, I think I was a student, not even in my internship yet, but had a 9-year-old girl with a melanoma on the bottom of her foot. That was not from sun exposure. She wasn't old enough to have been out that long, but, devastating disease. So this is something we can mostly prevent by being careful with our sun exposure, but not 100%.
We wanted to thank the caller. And speaking of, once you actually get rid of a melanoma, you've got to repair the skin still. And so skin treatment, we still have a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of things. In fact, my encouragement on sunblocks, let me tell just a couple quick things. There are mineral sunblocks, usually titanium dioxide or zinc oxide or the two together. That's one of my favorites. I liken it to putting tinfoil on top of your skin so it's reflective. But there's also ones that are chemical or a mixture of mineral and chemical, and they protect the chemical ones protect by changing the reaction that the UV rays cause in the skin so that it minimizes the actual risk for cancer in the future, as well as the damage to the underlying layer of the skin. So that's kind of the take on mineral versus chemical. But why do you want to do this? Not just because you want to look good when you're old, but if you have cancers and precancers, usually they're not even melanoma, but they are deforming when I have to cut them off your nose. So we try to get away with freezing as much as we can, but if there are things that need cutting out, we do. And then we try to do that as cosmetically as possible. But, I see people all the time that have not one, but 3 or 4 cancers over a short period of time. They're not from that year. They're from decades ago exposure. So, preventative really does make sense when it comes to the skin.
We wanted to point out, there's a number of things you can use to treat people. Sometimes you don't have to get as radical as surgery.
Correct. No, often it's a topical treatment with either freezing. There's a topical chemotherapy treatment called 5-FU or 5-fluorouracil. So there are things we can do, and most of the time, it's again preventative things we can do. And I got to put in a little pitch. Next Thursday, so the 17th of May, 7 p.m., we have one of our appeal parties. It does cost $100 to get in, but what you'll receive there is way beyond that. And one of the areas that you show age quickest is the backs of your hands, because people forget to take care of those, and long sleeves don't cover them. And so we'll be doing some type of a facial peel after a consultation with me or one of our other providers. We'll be doing a hand peel on both of your hands, and you'll get, I can't remember the details, but by the time you're done with this party, you'll have received, well over about $200 worth of value for $100. And you'll get a chance to really see what you could do and how we can take years off of your skin.
One of my worst sunburns ever. I was in the Bahamas, and I was at what's called Blue Lagoon Island. That's the island where they filmed the opening shots for Gilligan's Island and then the movie Blue Lagoon.
Okay.
And I was at the beach, and I had plenty of sunblock on. Decided to take my old British Knights, which were a popular sneaker at the time.
Sure.
Took my shoes off and was in my bare feet, spending time walking around the beach. And when I got back,
protect the tops of your feet.
next couple of days walking around, I couldn't tie my shoes.
Yeah, no, that's classic, because everything else gets a little bit of sun exposure, and then you take your feet out of your shoes, and they're brand new to the sun.
This party, these peel parties have been working very well for your office, as I understand.
They are a lot of fun. It really is more of a party atmosphere than clinical, but you're definitely getting a clinical point of view as to what can be done and what's advisable, in a safe way and in a very shall we say, no or very little downtime type of treatments. So lots of fun, lots of experience coming into this, and love to have you bring a friend, because it really is more of a party experience.
That is the 17th, so that's a week from
this Thursday. So a week from tomorrow.
Okay.
So
and
call
to make
our
a
office.
reservation. You got to make a reservation.
Yeah, you do need to be reserve a spot. Need to put a little money down, and we'll have some fun that night.
When you talked a little bit about the fact that surgery can be important, but there's so many ways you can rebuild at least the look of the skin if it's not too terribly damaged. I have a couple of pock marks still in my forehead from the second grade chicken pox. These things could probably be taken care of, I would think, quite simply if I chose to do that.
Yep. Yeah, and it is your choice. You don't have to. In fact, a lot of times I'll have somebody come in and say, oh, I want to get rid of this, or I hate this, whatever it is, a mole or something. Frequently, I'm actually persuading them not to. And, it's a different person's perspective. My cosmetic background gives me a little leeway to tell an opinion rather than just, the next door neighbor's opinion. So I won't say everything that wants to be removed I'll agree to, but For the most part, if it's small, or even if it's big, like I talk about acne scars,
Mhm.
we can do a lot to make that look a lot better. Whether it's rosacea, meaning the redness in your face, acne, oh my goodness, we have awesome treatments for acne without getting into antibiotics and other pharmaceuticals.
The science and the treatment, though, have made leaps and bounds in just the last couple of decades.
Yeah, it is. Shall we say it's old science renewed? Because a big part of what we use is glycolic acid, but it's a different delivery system. It's a whole new world and much more effective, less irritation to the surface of the skin. So the traditional chemical peels where somebody looks like a snake, we can do, but we usually don't.
We wanted to point out we're coming up on final minute for people who would like to reach your office because a lot of people out here, we like to point out with the population growth, they may not want to drive all the way back to Portland or
Yeah.
Sacramento for a doctor's appointment. They need a new office. How do they go about getting a hold of you?
Well, if you don't want to go to Sacramento,
Nobody
yeah,
does.
we are on the north end of town, across from the post office on Fillmore Street. So the address there is 1411 Fillmore, and you'll see our sign in a window just across from the entry to the post office. Our phone number is 208-933-4400. That's 208-933-4400. You can reach us on our website at trippfamilymedicine.com, and you can kind of follow us or check us out on Facebook at Tripp Family Medicine as well. So all good ways to contact us. Probably the telephone's the best, especially if you're interested in the peel party. And we are accepting new patients, and we see little kids on up, newborns on up. In fact, if you have a baby or a grandchild, we'd love to see them, and they get way too much attention from my nursing staff. Kind of stops the whole process
Yes.
of the day. But we love seeing kids. It's a lot of fun.
We'll talk to you again sometime soon. The rotation may keep you away for a couple of weeks, but we'll
Yep.
have somebody here next Wednesday morning.
In the words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back.
Yes. He takes good care of his skin, by the way.
That's right.
9 o'clock news is on the way, and we have a candidate who's running for a superintendent of public instruction in Idaho, Jeff Dillon. He's going to be joining us just after the 9 o'clock news from Fox, as well as the local update from our own Benita Baeza.